Hey guys, welcome back to the Armchair Racers podcast. I'm co-host Austin Belkey alongside with my other co-host Kenny Kibbe. Our guest today is Zane Ferrell, and with that we'll get into the news.
So first bit of news this week, a little bit of NASCAR silly season seems to be pretty much never ending anymore. A lot of like seems like every week through the whole year anymore we get some kind of NASCAR silly season. But anyways, AJ Allmendinger going full time in Xfinity Series with Colleague, which really kind of surprises me. I thought he was going to be going to sports cars. I thought he was pretty much done with NASCAR, but he's had success with Colleague, and I'm hoping the best for him. The next thing is Corey LaJoie signs to drive the number 7 car, which is not a Tommy Baldwin racing car. It's actually Spire Motorsports, and they seem to have big plans for the next gen car. We'll see if they get any better, but I think they're going to probably be a pretty crummy team to at least in 2021.
Yeah, when Corey LaJoy left or said he was leaving Go Fast, I was like, oh man, Matt DiBenedetto like thing, kind of calling his shot and hoping a better car opens up for him. I never saw like peaks of talent like it with Matt DiBenedetto. He had a good run, but I mean, he got really lucky that one time at Bristol, but that could have been it. But sure enough, I think he's worse off in the seven for at least 2021.
Moving on
Next,
to
yep.
the ARCA series schedule in 2021 was released. And it's pretty interesting actually. I mean, a lot of it's the same. You know, you got starting out with Daytona, you got 20 races at 19 different tracks. I like that they kept their two dirt tracks, Illinois State Fairgrounds and DuQuoin State Fairgrounds. Those are pretty interesting races. I know at least one of them's at like a former horse racing track. They might both be. Um, but going back to Berlin Raceway, which is Austin and I's hometown track, as far as well,
NASCAR.
actually from you're probably closer to MIS than to Berlin. Uh,
But for short track,
yeah, for short track for sure. And then they're going to Watkins Glen again, which is really interesting. And then they're also going back to the Milwaukee Mile. Um, that'll be cool to see. I really wish that track could get more attention like it used to. And then Mid Ohio, which Austin, you said you probably have plans to most likely go to that race.
yeah, it should be really cool. They got them and the Xfinity cars there for that weekend. Should be awesome.
Hopefully, I can make it to that one as well. Um, and a quick touch on some iRacing news. The new build is coming out. What is it this week?
I
Wednesday.
think it's this week, but it's coming out Wednesday. Yeah.
So um, iRacing's getting Long Beach, which was like one of their first ever scanned racetracks, but nobody ever did anything with it. And now they're finally actually finishing it, and it looks beautiful. I'm not a huge fan of racing the track, but as far as like that cool factor of how cool a track is, it's a pretty cool track. Um, Also, they're coming out with Cedar Lake Speedway, which is a 3/8 mile dirt track. That one will be okay. I think I like that size of track better than like the quarter mile bull ring type tracks. It's still pretty short dirt track, but um, hey, it's more content, so I'll take it.
They're coming out with a new big block. Those are dirt cars. They're kind of like they're more of an upper echelon, a lot more horsepower in them. Those should be pretty fun. And then the Coca-Cola track, which is like a fictional track. Um, I've seen a lot of good things said about it, and I've seen some people hating on it. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, also with the new like F1 style car that they came out with, a lot of polarizing opinions on that. But I think iRacing did that because they didn't really have a chance to go a lot of places and to go and scan people's cars because of the whole pandemic thing going on. So that was kind of their chance to kind of remotely make up a car if they didn't have a chance to go actually physically see a car and be able to mess with it. Um, But moving on, we got a the Snowball Derby is the real Snowball Derby is this weekend. We had the Snowflake 100 last night, and the Snowball Derby is today in the afternoon. Um, they had the last chance qualifier race yesterday for that, and probably the biggest name that missed the race was Noah Gregson. He just didn't seem to have the speed driving for James Finch, I believe. Had a cool looking car, but looks don't always make you fast. And yeah, he missed it. And Connor Kresick, another pretty big name that has been in the Snowball Derby multiple times, he missed it. Chandler Smith had to forfeit his qualifying time because he was using his cell phone after his qualifying lap. But he ended up racing his way in through the last chance race. So he'll be in there. Um, but we'll dive into the Snowball in a little bit, little preview of that. Um, well, actually, you want to touch on it right now?
Yeah, we can if you want, sure.
Okay. Um, yeah, I personally think Ty Majeski's probably the favorite. He's starting P3 today. Stephen Nasse won. He crossed the finish line first last year. He's starting fifth this year, but he got DQ'd because of his brakes, having titanium in them. But Kyle Busch is in there. I'm really interested to see how he does. He starts P9. Derek Kraus, the Truck Series driver, is in P14. Grant Enfinger, another Truck Series driver. I think he's from Florida. He's in there. P17. Ross Kenseth, Boris Yurkovic. Yurkovic, I watched him win the Battle of Berlin. What was it? 2019.
Bubba Pollard's in there.
Yeah. He barely. He had to use like a provisional too.
Yeah, something like that, because he qualified 37th. Not very good.
Travis Braden, he won last year's Snowball Derby uh, after Nasse got DQ'd, so he'll be fast. Carson Hocevar, another local Michigan guy. See how he does. He'll be pretty deep in the field. And Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott qualified 42nd, but he had to race his way in the Snowball last chance qualifier race. He won that race, surprisingly, so he'll be there.
Yeah, I think he'll be pretty fast. It's just he's going to have to get through all the traffic, not get lapped early, and I mean, he's got
Considering
time.
how deep in the field he'll be, which would be like, what, 21st or something then? 22nd?
No, he'll be further back than that because the top 30 made it on time on qualifying
Oh, the
times.
top 30. Okay, so he'd be like 31st or 32nd.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, probably top 10 at best, given how deep in the field he is.
Right. Then we got some F1 news.
Yeah, the first thing we got for F1, Roman Grosjean crashed last week at the Bahrain Grand Prix on the opening lap. It was one of the first times I woke up for an F1 race in a couple months, just to see his car hit the wall, a bunch of flames, and then nothing happened for like an entire hour. But he's okay. His car got pretty much ripped in half. That was incredible to see. That's kind of scary, but he's okay with just burns on his hands. Lewis Hamilton got diagnosed with COVID-19, or not diagnosed, but he tested positive. He said he had some mild symptoms. One of those weird things. He got tested a bunch of times, negative results the week before, but over the last I think Monday or Tuesday, said he had COVID. So they gonna have to fill his seat with someone. Kenny, who they fill in the seat with?
Oh, this guy named George Russell. Uh, I'm not really familiar with him. I have no idea where he came from, like before F1. I don't know if you know that answer.
He came from F2.
Ah, yes. Very. Guess I could have guessed that one. Um, but I'm excited to see what he'll do. I don't really follow F1 that closely, but it's interesting when you have a guy like that. You know, the best. Obviously, it's the best car. So we'll see what a different guy can do in that best car. Can he replicate the same results, or you know, or is Lewis Hamilton really that good? I mean, Lewis Hamilton is good, but is George Russell really good? Who knows? He hasn't really had the chance.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. He was the F2 champion, of course, and I know that series is a lot closer than F1 in terms of how good the car is versus like the back markers of the field. There's still like some parity and not great parity in there, but I believe it's closer when he won his championship. Um, just for so you guys know, watching the podcast or listening, um, George Russell went out and he was P1 in the first two practices. He was, I think, P2 or three in the third practice. Max Verstappen won that. That was pretty weird. Um, and then in qualifying, I think he was beat by Valtteri by 2/100ths of a second. So pretty close.
And I think, well, we kind of already touched on the going deeper into the schedule. Is there anything else you want to say with the Grosjean situation or the Hamilton situation?
Nah, other than Emerson Fittipaldi is filling in for Grosjean this weekend. We'll see who's doing it next weekend. Could be Mick
Or
Schumacher, but we'll see.
it's
Uh,
Pietro Fittipaldi, right?
Emerson,
Yeah, not Emerson.
well, it's his grandson.
Yeah, his
So
grandson.
add two generations on, you got the right kid.
Yes,
Um,
they're all the same.
Emerson just rolls off the tongue more. It is what it is.
Yes.
Um, Grosjean's crash means he won't race at Abu Dhabi. Apparently, Toto Wolff, the dude in charge of the Mercedes F1 team, said that if Grosjean couldn't race, they would give him a private test session in the Mercedes. And I'd be interested to see what kind of lap times he's pulling there, or where they go for that, because it'd be cool if he just went out and he was like right up there with like Hamilton and Russell.
That would be cool. That would be really interesting to see. Um, give a guy an equal chance and see what he can do.
Speaking of F1 and Haas, though, Roman Grosjean's teammate Kevin Magnussen, um, the last name sounds familiar. That's because he's Jan Magnussen's son, the guy who used to drive for Corvette Racing and the three car. Um, he's gonna race for Chip Ganassi Racing in the IMSA DPI class for I forget who his co-driver is, but it's someone else pretty fast. So they'll be a force to reckon with for sure in Chip's Cadillacs.
So we move forward on to yeah, and that Ganassi lineup's pretty stacked too, and they haven't announced Chase Elliott's lineup for his car, but I don't know. I'm really excited for maybe not the entire IMSA season, but for especially for the Daytona because there's a lot of lineup changes. There's quite a few drivers from different disciplines making appearances, and I really want to see what Jimmy Johnson can do. He's had decent runs in the prototypes in the past. See what he can do this year.
Yeah, his co-drivers are pretty amazing too. I know he's got Kobayashi in there. That guy is lightning quick.
That guy can hammer some hot dogs.
Oh yeah. So I guess we'll keep with the road racing. We'll go to the SCRL update. We went to Silverstone yesterday. Justin qualified on the pole. Justin Morton. I qualified second. I got lucky on my last lap and pipped Tim by about a tenth. Um, we were going. I was still second, and at Silverstone, one of the places before the Hanger Straight, you turn right. I guess I clipped the grass too much, and I got a 2.9 second slowdown, which made no sense because I did not gain enough time at all. Because when I crossed the start finish line, my lap time was like 2.9 seconds worse than it should have been. So that's iRacing being iRacing, but Tim got second then, and the podium was kept off by Chris. Great pit stop call. He overtook me for third in the pits by taking less fuel. He's got his very own Chad Knaus, and great drive by him too.
Yeah, I was watching Chris's live stream. Chris is Seawolf30 on Twitch. I was watching from his point of view, and I could tell that the stewards were pretty picky at that track because man, he kept getting slowdowns in kind of dumb places, and I knew he had some hidden speed because he was 6 tenths up on his current lap in practice, and then he got a slowdown, and he was still like third quickest. So,
To be honest, too, it's kind of foolish to ever doubt he won't be in contention in some of those races because you give that guy an ounce of practice and he'll whoop your ass.
yeah, I think with Chris is that he's not he doesn't always have the raw speed at every track, but he knows how to run clean laps and take advantage of other people's mistakes. That's like probably Chris's bread and butter is just being there at the end.
Chris did really well in the BRL, the Grand National Series too. He got ninth, so one spot away from sitting on the pole next week. But great run out of him.
Yeah, going into the BRL, which was well, we had Friday night. I don't think really either of us want to talk about Friday night because we were at Kokomo in the dirt street stocks, and I was following behind you. We were like I don't know fifth or sixth or something, and I hit the wall. I got up on top of the wall and caved in my right front, and I just totally destroyed the car, and I had to pull off the track, and that ended my night in a 40 lap feature. So I got dead last.
Yeah, lots of talent though seen by you pulling off the track. That was incredible. I don't know how you were able to just pull off the track with a car that damaged.
Ah, you
Um,
just floor it and turn left.
Really, that's incredible. I had my suspicions, but it is what it is, I guess. I was running sixth, following J.R. Shepard and Steven Spies, and they were hooting and hollering for fourth and fifth place. Steve would try to do a slider, and he wouldn't clear J.R. And J.R. he's not going to budge an inch. Steve would just come up and pow, put J.R. into the fence, and it was a pretty good race. And then I got killed by a car bouncing off the wall. That was pretty gnarly.
Yeah, and I was watching it on the live stream, and your car kind of lifted up, got a little bit airborne, and it was
Oh, I saw
you
Sky.
were you were running so well too, and just in a blink of an eye, just bam, it
Yeah,
was,
I saw Steven and then a car bouncing off the wall and then Sky.
and then death.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yep.
I love how you called it on your stream too. You're like, oh, there's Austin spinning into the infield. It's he probably meant to do that because his car is toast.
Then we'll move on to Saturday, and so the street stocks. I actually got to start fourth, even though I should have started seventh, and you just couldn't pass. We got behind. It was me and Jr. and we were trying to get by Donnie, and we just could not do it the whole race. I was blocked in because Jr. was on Donnie's inside. I couldn't go anywhere. Somebody had to make a move. Donnie kept fighting him off, fighting him off, fighting him off. And we got the final restart, final few laps, and they actually got together in turn one. Donnie moved up the track, and I was actually going to make it three wide, but then JR moved up or I cut down the track just a little bit to get a good run under Donnie, and JR's right rear was right there, and I just touched it just a bit, and I had to get on the brakes, and it totally killed my momentum. So instead of gaining anything, I actually I lost a spot. I ended up fourth. Where'd you end up in that street stock race?
Uh, pretty far near the back. I was 5 laps down by like the end of the 10th lap. Because I qualified or I started ninth. We were running around. I gained a couple spots on the inside, which surprised me. Um, I think we had a quick caution or something, and then going on the backstretch, Ruben moved over, and it looked like James really like had to check up pretty bad, and I didn't know where they were gonna go, so I tried to give him as much room as possible. I went down to the apron because you could kind of rip on the apron in practice, and it was just the tires were too green and the track was too fresh, so I spun out, but I saved it on the front stretch, and I don't know how, but there was a big ass pileup. Like there were two different pileups. I don't know what in the fuck for, but it was bad.
And then in the SK mod race, you and I actually had two really good runs. I ended up second, you ended up fourth.
Yeah, I was
Um,
surprised I lived through that race.
yeah, well, there was a really big wreck early on. I was right behind Donnie, and he was behind Todd on the high side. And Todd kept missing the corner, so one time he missed the corner really badly, and I think Donnie tried to get underneath him, and everything just narrowed right up, and they all wrecked, but they washed down the track, and I went right past them. And JR was actually involved in that, but he was able to he stayed out. He didn't pit or anything, and he stayed up. We had kept good track position. Stayed ahead of me, and he was ahead of me the rest of the race. I just when he got to the lead and I got to second, I just could never get up within 2/10 of him. He just kind of had an imaginary bubble around him. I felt like I was actually faster, but the car's handling was just such at that track where it's so hard to pass. I couldn't actually get up underneath him.
Yeah, I was involved in that wreck down the back straightaway. I have no idea what happened. I just saw a couple of cars, like Todd was perpendicular with his rear end down the track, and I nailed Todd. My engine blew up. I was smoking for a lap trying to make sure I didn't get a penalty, and I blew up on pit road and had to coast into my box. Um, Luckily, I got out without having to go a lap down using my fast repair, um, and then I raced up to fourth.
And then finally we had the Grand National race, which that was a pretty crazy race. Again, really hard to pass. And let's see, I started eighth, I think. Or well, I actually moved up a row because Donnie was having connection issues, so I started sixth and made my way through the field there, and I got the lead. And JR was really aggressive, battling with me, and I was in really good position. But then on like lap 80 out of 100, I let him have the high side, and it cost me the race. He went right to my outside as soon as I gave it to him. Got on my quarter panel and just battled with me. And then a couple corners later, I went down into turn three, braked really hard, got loose, nearly took us both out. I can't believe we both saved it, and kept going on. I lost another spot and eventually fell back to fourth and had to come back to get third. It was still a good run, but man, it was some hard racing with JR.
Yeah, I started first. Surprisingly, I won practice. I don't think I've ever won practice in the Grand National cars before, but it was pretty much all tires. That was just fresh tires in a good lap. Started on the pole, like I said. I led the first, I think, 20 something laps. Most laps I've ever led in a race before. Um, so that was fun. Then later in the race, I think Kenny got to me. It starting on the inside, especially as the leader, is kind of BS because the outside is better in every situation, um, especially on restarts. As the leader, the only thing you can hope for is to try and pull a car length on the guy to your outside. Otherwise, you're probably going to get passed. Such was the case with Kenny. And then Kenny, you actually almost passed me on the inside, completely, and then going into turn one, I think on the next lap, I just blew the corner.
Yeah, I was sad too because when you blew the corner, my theory was okay. I'm gonna slip past Austin. He's gonna fall behind me, and he's gonna defend the daylights out of JR, and I'm
Oh
gonna
yeah, I
be able
had
to
to
run
because I didn't
away.
want to be third. I wanted to be second, but going down the front stretch, it gets wider because some dipshit decided that they should move to give us more space, and then it narrows back down. So I was trying to make sure I wasn't going to hit the wall and I wasn't going to hit you, and I just broke too late.
I think you don't get enough credit in that series, though. You're better than what the announcers think. They're like, oh, of all
Well,
people,
to be
Austin
honest,
Belkey.
I would put myself just below the good guys and just above the bad guys, or not bad guys, but like slower people. Where that is actually and how many people are on either side, I don't know. But usually it's like you, James, Justin, or JR leading practice. I think the best I've ever done is like second. And if that was the case, JR would have beat me by like 2/10 or something still, just a stupid amount.
Yeah,
So
I,
in the race though, I usually have good race pace until I get wrecked, but
yeah,
it is what it is.
you do have good race pace, and like I don't really. I'll go down and try to maybe do a qualifying type lap maybe, but usually I just try to run race pace laps.
Yeah, well, I'll do 20 laps and just come back in and see where my tires are. And if it's like 94, 95%, usually you got to take that down a notch because if you're done, if you do that, run 100 laps green like that, just extrapolate the data. If you're down by 5%, multiply that by 5, and you'll have 75% left on your tires, which isn't bad, but it isn't great. For 100 laps, it's really good, but it is what it is.
Well, our guest this week, he is somebody who has to win practice, and our guest this week is Zane Ferrell, driver at Jennerstown Speedway in the number 14 late model. How you doing, Zane?
Good. How are you guys doing?
We are doing fantastic. It's really great to have you in here with us this week.
Yeah, we're doing better now that you're here, Zane.
Yes. Um, Zane, I'd like to start out first by going back. I'd like to know like your
All the way back.
origins. What's that? Oh, yeah.
All the way back. Yeah.
I'd like to know your origins in racing. Like, how did the whole actually going out and racing a real race car start, and where that came from, and then like where the origins of your number came from, since that's kind of like my favorite number too, was 14. That was something I noticed when I got to know you, is that we like to race the same number.
Well, I got started back in 1999, I think it was. I started racing go karts at a local track around my house. There was a couple local dirt go kart tracks that we would run at, and the origins where I got my number from was my grandfather. He ran back in the old days. He ran the Motordrome in Jennerstown, and he ran a place in Latrobe, Pennsylvania. It was called Schmuckers, and he started with that number, and he's had it. And when I started racing, my first number actually was 64. Then then the next year, I remember my mom and dad asking me, "Oh, do you want to be 14 or 64?" I said, "Well, I would rather be 14."
That's
Uh,
fun. It's funny that you were 64 because that ended up being the number that I ran in the TCM race just a few weeks ago because 14 was taken.
Zane, how old were you when you started? Not to date you, but probably like 5 or 6.
I was 7 years old when I started.
Nice. Um, what
Have you
sector?
ever run at Motordrome then?
Yeah, I ran into Motordrome. I ran in Motordrome days. Um, I'm trying to think here. When I got out of go karts, I only ran like like a handful of races in 2008. The following year, that's when a lot of the tracks, like I used to race at the track I started at was Hunter Hill in Mount Pleasant, where I live now, and we ran Hunter Hill, Acme. It was actually a couple minutes also up the road. It's up this one hill in Pennsylvania, but they were both within 5 minutes from each other. Uh, Hunter Hill unfortunately shut down after 2004, which was a great track to run at. There was a lot of good. I had a lot of good memories there. Um, then we ran Acme for a little bit, and they ended up shutting down after 2008. I think. I think it was 2008, or it might have been. They might have shut down a year or two after I stopped racing there. But I felt like I was getting too fat to be in go karts. Um, so I wanted to still race, and me and my family we talked about selling all the go kart stuff and trying to go to race pure stock at Motordrome. 2009 we bought a pure stock at Motordrome, and we ran that for probably 4 years. And 2009 was a lot of fun, big time learning curve because we went from like 1,000 pound go kart to a a third, how much did it weigh? A 3,400 pound vehicle, rear wheel drive vehicle. It was definitely a learning curve, but we picked it up pretty quick.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool being able to watch you. Like I know Matt will occasionally send me links to live streams for Jennerstown and stuff, and that's the closest I've been able to get to watching you race. But it's really cool to actually have a horse to pull for in the race. Somebody actually like know, and that's kind of reason why people like watching us do sim racing. Is they if friends of us actually know us, they enjoy rooting for us, and that kind of adds to the enjoyment. Even if maybe you aren't the biggest race fan at heart, but if you have somebody to root for, it makes it that much better.
Yeah, I agree on that one. That's a very true statement.
So I want to go to the iRacing side now. We both run now. I'm a part of it now at the NEP Shift Marking and Design Grand National Series, which started what had been last year, right? Last winter. And we started the first season, and I was the race director. Now this year, you guys let me race with you. How did that kind of come about with you and another late model driver?
Actually, it started when the pandemic first hit. I wouldn't even say when the pandemic first hit. It was more of a couple months after that. I remember when the pandemic actually hit, we started me and my friend Corey Casagrande, late model driver from Connecticut. We got to talking, and well, me and him met when we went to he came to Jennerstown for the 2018 Motor Mountain Masters, and he'd ask me a couple questions about. I'd send him all the rules and stuff like that, and then we just kind of started talking, became friends, and then like I said, when the virus hit, we started a super late model league on iRacing, which we only like 8, 9 to 10 guys every night, and then after that we tried to do a IndyCar league, which there was only 3 of us that showed up the first week, and then we started talking about let's do a ARCA league because the ARCA car is pretty fun to drive, and he said, well, okay. I'm good. I'm game with doing the ARC car, but we should do like a throwback league. And then he had the idea of doing the um, like the Bush North, the 1990s, 1980s Bush North guys, and some Winston West guys. And now we have a league with over 30 some people in it.
Yeah, I think that's the cool thing. I think every league needs to have that one thing that helps them stick out, or else they're not going to have that much longevity. And I think that is NEP's thing, is the whole throwback thing. It's not just like an option where like, oh, half the field does it. Everybody participates in some kind of throwback, which really makes the league really cool. Especially the Bush North stuff, because to a lot of people, including myself, coming into this, Bush North stuff's kind of obscure. So it's interesting it's kind of a history lesson, coming in to look at these cars and look at the story behind them. Like the car that I drive, for example, I didn't know about Jerry Marquis or the 15 O'Connor's car or anything, but it's in the slideshow in the for the podcast. But it was kind of cool going and doing some homework and learning about that car and the success it had and about the series.
Yeah, let me ask you a question about that real quick too. It's one of the things I've thought about a lot with the NASCAR. Obviously, their throwback weekend is Darlington, and they started first. It was like any throwback, and then they started saying like 70s, 80s. They're dipping into the 90s now with some of the cars. You guys said you started in the 80s and 90s. Is the goal of that, and we'll see how long the series lasts, and hopefully it's a really long time. Um, are there any plans to change to maybe bring it up to be only 90s, or change the years around in the future to keep it fresh in terms of new schemes?
Not necessarily. We just try to encourage guys to run throwback schemes, like not a NASCAR Cup throwback scheme. More so, like Kenny said, we try to run the Bush North stuff. Like the scheme I run was a driver from around here. He ended up racing Bush Series, I think, a couple times in the I'd say late '80s, early '90s. But he was kind of our notable one around Pennsylvania that did that. I wasn't up to date much on the Bush North stuff when I was really young. I didn't really get into like local short track racing until I was like, I'd say 8, 9. Like, well, when I started racing, like 9, 10. But then by that time, Bush North was still around, but I didn't really pay much attention to that because I really didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody because there wasn't Jeff Gordon, Dale Earnhardt in it, so I didn't care about it. But now that I see all these pictures, and I wish I would have appreciated it a little more when I was younger.
I understand. What's your guys' numbers, Kenny? I think yours is 15 in that, right?
Yep, I drive the orange and purple number 15 O'Connor's car. It's based on the 1997 car driven by Jerry Marquis. Jerry Marquis was actually a really good modified driver who came over and ran some Busch North. He did a lot of like part-time stuff, but in I believe '96 and '7 he ran full time. I think. He got a few wins in that car, so I wanted 14, but that number was already taken, and so I just started looking up cool paint schemes, and that orange and purple O'Connor's car looked really sweet to me, so I just went with that, and it's kind of become my staple in that league.
Yeah, the
And
number I have too, Austin, is number 49, Ferree Chevrolet, driven by Ed Ferree. He ran a lot of the local stuff around Pennsylvania, like Pittsburgh area. Um, I'm not 100% sure, but I know the car is from 1992, and I'm not sure if he just ran Jennerstown when they came there.
Did you ran a different throwback in the first season of NEP, didn't you?
Yeah, I ran number 77, Brian Wall. I split it between Mountaineer Ford and the NFL players, actually the NFLPA, whatever that's called. I'm not 100% positive. The Players Association stuff.
Yeah, I thought I remembered that you had a different paint scheme. But transitioning out of racing for a little bit, Austin's got some non-racing things to bring up.
yeah, so I talked to Lacey on Facebook Messenger, and I asked her for stories or just cool stuff about you, and I figured there'd be a lot because you're such a cool guy, and there was. We had to pare it down a bit. Um, the first thing that I am to ask you about is the 4th of July slip and slide.
Oh yeah. Every 4th of July, me and my family, we try to have a big old slip and slide, and it's just it's a night to remember. It's something funny happens every year.
Well, at least when you're drunk, it's a little bit harder to get injured. You're a little more pliable.
More
Yeah,
ductile.
it's always a fun time. It's like something I try to put on a good thing for my friends, and I always want people to come. I try to get Corey to come down, his brother Kyle. I try to get his cousin Charles and his wife to come up for it. It's going to be turned into hopefully a lot of out of staters show up, because I think this past year, I think we had pushing 60, 70 people at it.
Holy cow, that's a
That's
big
awesome.
party. You must have a relatively big yard.
I usually have it at my family's, at my mom and dad's house. They live 10 minutes from me, but they have 2 acres, and the one hillside. It's perfect for a slip and slide. Like I said, we always it's $30 a fun is what it is, because the tarp it's like a painter's tarp I have to buy. It's a 12 by 100 foot, and we spend probably $10 or so on $20 or so on like baby shampoo, because the first year we did it was our experimental year, and we bought just regular shampoo. Well, everybody was complaining that their eyes were burning. Their eyes were burning. Well, I thought we bought baby shampoo, but we didn't. We had regular shampoo. So the following year we bought, you know, probably 10 gallon of or so of baby shampoo, and everybody didn't complain that year that they had burning eyes.
I was just gonna ask how long is this slip and slide we're talking about, but that's pretty ingenious. That's 12 by 100 foot. Is there anything to stop them from going over the sides, or what's at the end of this? Like a house, or what's there?
The one year we were the way I had to put it at my family's house, because the hillside's not really like a straight down hillside, so I had to like kind of kink it a little bit so where people would stay on it longer. And at the end, the one year we had it end right in front of a tree. Well, I had old racing tires from previous cars, from late models and modifieds, and my street stock sitting behind my parents' shed. I probably had about 10 or so tires, so I put those tires up around that tree. And some people would hit them, but if you got a running start at it and then you went in, you were hitting them pretty good.
Are these race tires tethered?
No, they were older. They were just older ones. They were, but yeah, we just kind of had them like around the tree, and if you hit it, and they would move out of the way, so you had to put it back before somebody went flying into the tree head first.
That's fantastic.
Has it moved since then?
Not really in the past couple years. The what I think we normally try to keep it around the same area because I found this one part in the yard where it's kind of like it's a straight shot. So if you start from the top and start going slow, you'll make it down, without like moving off course or falling off the side halfway down.
Interesting.
That,
Very nice.
yeah, that's great. The and everybody at the end has really silky smooth skin too. I mean, it's a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's a good time.
Yeah. Um, Going back to racing for a little bit. You won a feature race at Jennerstown. What was that? Probably 2019, right?
That was 2019 was the first year I won a late model race.
Yeah. And I ended up watching. Matt Shanowski sent me a video of like the end because it was actually covered pretty well actually by the media. And what an intense video that was with you guys side by side. You were side by side with Barry Audi, and you won by a thousandth of a second. Take me back to that and like what it felt like to first be in that battle, and then to come out on the right side.
Um, yeah, it's hard to put into words, but you'll never forget your first win in like anything. I mean, I remember first wins in go karts. Being a little kid and winning a race, and going to Motordrome, running pure stocks, street stocks, and I never won in street stocks, but in the pure stock, 2009, I was 17 years old, still some young dumb kid, and we went out and we didn't know what the hell we were doing. I mean, honest to God, we knew this, that, and then there really wasn't much things you could do on a pure stock. But we went out one night. We started second, and we were all happy, like holy cow, Zane, you're starting second. You just go out and have fun. Well, that fun turned into leading out of the 15 lap feature. We led 10 laps, and we led the last 10, obviously. But being out in the lead, being that young, and I think it was only my like fourth or fifth race in that car, and we went out, and I'm like, I just remember, we didn't have radios in those cars. We had to rely on just the one mirror and then the spot mirror. So I just remember looking in my rearview mirror, and I was coming out of turn on the last lap, like last two laps, they felt like 500 miles. But I remember coming out, the turn two, and I looked up in my rearview mirror, and I was basically a half a track ahead of everybody. And I went into the last corner just thinking, just stay together, nothing fall off, no tire failure, no nothing, just stay together for one more corner, please. And the end result, we won our first race, which was pretty cool. But back to the late model stuff, I just remember I can't remember where we started. I think we started sixth or seventh in that race. The car was fast all night. I know in our heat race we started in the back. I remember I started like eighth in the heat race, and I drove up to third. And I'd come in, and I said to my dad and friend of mine that helps us out, and I said, this car is really fast. I was like, we were on new tires. We had we put them on new tires. We double checked everything, and everything came out perfect. And I was like, I don't want to change a thing. I want to see where I start first before I really do anything. Well, I think I started sixth that night. I'm pretty positive. And the first half of the race, we run 30 lap features at Jennerstown for the late model stuff. And I just remember the first half, I think we got to fourth, and the leaders were, I'd say, straight away ahead or half straight away ahead. Well, the field started spacing out, and I remember I caught third and I passed them. Well, then I'm like, well, that's probably all I'm going to get. Well, I caught second then, like a lap or two later. And then the leader was a good, like, 9 car lengths ahead. He was about half a straightaway ahead. Laps were winding down. It was like I think it was 10 to go. And my spotter said, you're reeling in the leader. I said, there's no way. Well, a lap later, I picked up a good I'd say a good couple car lengths. I was like, I that's when I started thinking, I'm like, holy shit, I'm gonna catch him, you know. Well, I caught him and I passed him on the inside, and I led the last. Well, like I said, I led the last 8 laps there, but or like I led 7 laps. I lost the lead on the last lap, but I got it back coming to the checkered for the win. But I just remember getting under the leader and I stabbed the throttle and the car snapped sideways and I almost lost it because I started getting antsy. I got under him and finally I went to turn 3 and I passed him and my spotter said you're clear, you know, and I moved up and I started running my line. He said you're pulling away from the field and I was like, you know, this was with like 5 to go and I'm like, oh shit, you know.
Yeah, you guys had a hell of a battle in that race.
Yeah, like I was saying, I mean, we come, you know, then there was a caution with 2 to go, and I figured, you know, of course, you know, just my luck. There's always a caution with that much to go, with you know that little to go. Well, I got a great restart on the. It was going to be a green white checkered finish. I got a great restart. I pulled I you know I caught the guy on the outside sleeping, and I should say inside because I took the outside on my restarts because they give us lane choice if you're the leader. So um, I took the outside, and my car was great on the outside. I remember my car being great on the outside that night, and so I went with the outside lane. I got a great restart. I probably got a good like you know 1 or 2 car length going into turn 1. And I said I just got to keep it on the bottom. I just got to keep it on the bottom. Well, I took the white flag and I went to turn 1. I was coming out of 2, and my spotter said you're clear by 3. You're clear by 3 lengths, and I figured you know it's going to be over, and then the caution come out again. So I was like, well, I did it once before I could do it again. Well, on the next restart, he got the better jump, and he got me by half a car length going into 1. Well, I'm on the outside, and he cleared me. He well, I'm trying to think how it happened. It's been so long, but
I don't
I
think.
was side by side with him. I know, but coming to the white flag, I kind of babied it into 1. He got in front of me and slid up, and I said I ain't taking my foot out of the throttle. I was on the throttle, and he tried to slide up in front of me, and I think my nose just touched him a little bit on the back bumper, and it got him loose. And and I like I said I wasn't taking my foot off the throttle. I said you come up in my lane. I'm not giving you this outside. You know, it's but it got him a little loose and he come up and I darted to the bottom and I got a great run. We were side by side going into turn 3 and I inched ahead a little bit, but he had the outside and the outside is a really, really good place to be at Jennerstown. And we were coming to the line and I just remember just keeping it pegged and I didn't lift till I come out of turn 2.
Yeah, it was a. That's the thing too with you know, I agree that your first win always seems to be your most difficult to get because it's not just the fact of winning, but like it's kind of a psychological game. It's kind of a mental game because you're like you don't know if you can do it because you haven't done it before. And you have to keep telling yourself, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. At least that's just how I am. But once you've done it, you're like, oh, you know, you have that behind you now where you're like, yeah, you know, I've done this before. I can do it again. But like in that battle too, you didn't have. It wasn't like you just had to, you know, make it to the end. You had to battle all the way until the checkered. You didn't have a chance to kind of breathe, I should say.
That's the first thing too. Being in a race car, it's you know never give up till it's over. I mean, you could be in third place on the last lap, and you know you're just riding around feeling like you know, screw it, we're gonna finish third. We'll you know the thoughts start crossing your mind. What are we gonna do next week? You know, how are we gonna fix this? And then next thing you know, you see the 2 leaders in the wall coming off of you know going into turn 3 or something, or spinning out going into 3. Um, I've always said that to myself. It's you know, don't give up until it's over. Keep fighting until the end. But there's been a couple instances this past years with everything going on. There was a lot of I dropped out of races. Car wasn't good, or we've had you know really our fair share of bad luck, and something dumb would happen for us.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you're just like, well, that's racing. You have the highest of highs and the lowest of
Basically,
lows.
yep, basically.
It's all in fun though.
Yeah, it's one of those things too where if you're finally out front in the lead, you're like, oh man, what's going to happen to take this away because I've been the leader and a caution comes out and like, oh, that's, dusted, I'm out,
Yeah, when you're the leader going for two to go or the last lap, the last thing you want to see is the flashing yellow lights coming out of turn two or going into three. That's the last thing you want to see. It's the worst feeling in the world.
Yeah, Austin and I don't know that in the race car, but we certainly know that in iRacing, and it feels just as bad.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
it
know.
seems like the last two laps, especially coming to get the white flag, is like the longest lap ever. And then you get to the last lap and you're like, all right, as long as I don't screw up monumentally, I can win the race. And just the feeling of euphoria after you do it. And speaking of winning, one of the things Lacey mentioned was you got in street stocks and you didn't like it for whatever reason. We'd like to know why. And then you got the rookie of the year in the street stocks and then the championship.
That was actually modifieds. I won the rookie of the year and the championship in the same year. But the street stock stuff, we pure stocks because we were in it for 4 years, and each year I would say we were the car to beat, and but I wanted to try something different, and I think it was time to get out of that class because that's more the Chargers, and I like to call them pure stocks, but they it like I said, we were the car to beat. We were one of the cars to beat every year, and I wanted something different, and that was more of an entry level class. And I felt like okay, my skills are far beyond this style car. I want a new challenge. So I we sold that pure stock off, and we ended up getting the street stock. Well, should that we the car was a good car, but we really didn't know what we were messing with. Um, we tried. Then one of the guys who actually got me into racing, his name was Lonnie, and he ran modifieds, and he always told me you need to get in modifieds. Well, the guys that he was with that he raced for, they got this car, and they're like, go take a look at this car. Well, after 2015, and I told my mom and dad, like, I'm done racing. I'm tired of spending money on it. I don't want to be promised something that's going to be good, and then we go out and we are fighting for last place. So I knew my friend Lonnie. His name was Lonnie Hoffman. Actually, I knew he wouldn't steer me wrong because when he said, "Come over, look at this car," I want you to see what you think about it. And he goes, and I could tell you. And the guy he drove for came over too, and they said, just try it 1 year. Just try it 1 year. Well, I had 90% of the parts for that car, so I figured, and I'd say all the car needed was a motor to it. It just needed, and I had the motor, so I put the motor in, and we my friend Lonnie, he helped us out and said, you know, just go out and try it. Well, I went out and I didn't want to pull off in practice because he's like, go out and do 2 laps, come in, I want to make sure things are all right. Well, I ended up going out and doing like 10 laps. And I came in and I said, this thing drives like a Cadillac, man. It's like, it's smooth. There's nothing wrong with it. I can't really bitch about anything, it was awesome.
That's the thing too, is like every racer likes likes and dislikes different cars or different feels, and for some reason, for every one of us, there's that one car that just kind of hits right, where just the experience is just what you're looking for, and it's kind of like where you settle in is like, yeah, that's kind of my discipline.
Or maybe it just really matches your style, like just something about you and the way it drives just mesh.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people said. Like the modifieds are a fun class at Jennerstown, and I do miss driving them a lot. But I mean, there's really nothing that can compare to driving a late model. I mean, going from our modifieds in Pennsylvania are technically called like E mods. They're a car built from like an old Monte Carlo or an Impala, mostly like an Impala frame, but they're modified to look like an open wheel modified.
Yeah, we have modified similar to that here in Berlin Raceway. I'm not sure how the power is comparable to the ones at Jennerstown, but they're They're a little different. I'm sure those are the ones where like the guys out east they think it's not a real modified, right?
Yeah, I would say that guys like more so guys. The modified country is the Northeast. I mean, I was very fortunate to go to Connecticut this year, and with everything going on, going up to see like the modifieds up there, like the SK modifieds, the SK lights at Stafford Speedway, and that was an awesome time. But they don't have those style modifieds up there. They're strictly like they're basically tour mods, but they have like their different levels of them. Like they go tour. I think they go tour SK, then SK Light, which is like SK Light is your entry level into the modifieds.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, definitely a different breed. I like them all.
I like any type of racing.
One thing I know you really like is Barstool Sports Dave Portnoy pizza reviews. I've seen a couple and I think they're funny. What do you like about those so much?
I always like to see what he gives. A certain place. He might go to that one place from this TV show or this place from that movie, and then he'll give you a review of it and tell you what it tastes like. The just some of the stuff that they come up with at Barstool, I think is pretty good content. Myself, I like the golf. I like the foreplay golf, the golf podcast. I like Spit and Chicklets, their hockey podcast. I think it was pretty cool that Dave actually came to Pittsburgh I think it was this past summer, and he got to try some of the pizzerias around Pittsburgh that me and friends have went to, and which they're pretty good actually. And he gave a lot of positive reviews to some of these pizza places.
Well, that's cool. That's cool. He actually came to your area. I didn't know that. I was kind of pissed off because he he reviewed one brand that I recognized, which was a frozen brand of pizza called Jack's Pizza, and he gave it a terrible review. And I love Jack's pizzas. And
Honestly, it might just be my cheap tastes, but I like DiGiorno's pizza is the best pizza you can buy.
I can agree with that. I like DiGiorno.
I do like DiGiorno.
Dane, do you have a favorite episode of the pizza reviews?
One of my favorite episodes actually is when I think he went to a place called Goodfellas. It was in Kentucky. I can't remember where in Kentucky, but he gave it a 0.0. Uh, I don't know if it was the owner or one of the like people that worked there. They kicked him off the property for filming a pizza review, and people were telling this guy, you're kicking out the president of Barstool, right? And then like, well, I guess he got a little into it with Dave there, and Dave just basically said, you know what, this pizza sucks, 0.0, and he spit it on the ground and walked out.
It's fantastic. I'll have to watch that one. I think my favorite is the one where he's reviewing the pizza and some old dude without arms pulling a suitcase says he should give it to the crack addicts on the beach because that's all there are on the beach is crack addicts.
I do remember that one. That was also another legendary pizza review time.
That's funny because right when you were saying that, Austin, Lacey came into the chat and she said, ask Zane which pizza review I watch all the time, the guy with no arms. Must be the same one.
Yep, that's the same one.
Yeah, those guys at Barstool, they do get themselves in trouble sometimes, but they are not afraid to express themselves, and I think that's the kind of culture that everybody likes about them is that they don't really have a filter.
I think we need more of that too, because everybody focuses on like, oh, what if I get cancel cultured, and there's no just raw comedy or doing what you feel like you should do.
Yeah, it's definitely a new breed, but I kind of like that though because they're not afraid to say what's on their mind. We do need more of that. But Zane, before we let you go, I got a few kind of like quick hitting questions, just little questions. Favorite car on the iRacing service? Favorite car to drive?
Phew. Oval or road?
Oh, you can do one of each.
Well, the oval stuff, I do like running the truck stuff on oval. Um, I've been dabbling into some of the cup stuff at certain tracks. Um, but my favorite road car is quickly becoming the new Corvette. I do like driving that, and I keep forgetting that I joined Sim Racers Asia and run their leagues, and I think I've ran one race out of the like 6 races they've done already. I keep forgetting on Saturday mornings that it's at 9 o'clock, and but yeah, I'd say the Corvette's taken my top spot. I used to love running the BMW, the 12.0 challenge when they had the M8, but they did. I'd also noticed they brought back the Ferrari stuff. I do like running the Ferrari GT challenge. I can't wait to do the 24 hours with you guys again this year for at Daytona in the P2 car.
Yeah, I was just.
Zane,
Oh,
if you could describe the Corvette in one word with an adjective or something, what would it be?
Slaps.
yes, it slaps. I
Slaps.
I was just gonna ask you. I was pretty sure that you were gonna run with us, Western PA guys, with Daytona 24 hour again. But I was gonna ask if that was something you were gonna do. But it'll be good to have you on board again. That race is always the most fun for our group, I think, because it's the first one of the year. We usually get the most participation, and like it's arguably the easiest track, but it's a track we've had success at too. And I don't know, it's just a that endurance racing. I thought it would be fun when I first did it, but it's kind of turned into like just like what Matt Shinowski said in the past, the most fun thing to do on iRacing.
Yeah, I agree. I up until I got back into iRacing in like the end of 2018, and the I was going to do the 2019 24 hours, but I didn't because I was like, I'm not that good at road racing, and then I just started racing with you guys, with Matt and Tim and everybody, Chris and Ben. And I was like, oh man, this is actually, pretty fun. I like doing this stuff. Well, then that's when Matt and Tim said, you guys, you need to start just, get your license up. I think I was a rookie at the time. He's like, just get into D class and go run the Ferrari stuff. Well, I ran the Ferrari challenges, and I was like, this is awesome. I like running this. I wasn't the best. I'd qualify, towards the back, but I'd finish in like top 10 or so. But whenever I was like, well, I'm going to try the 24 hours race. Whenever we started testing and all that stuff, I was like, this is going to be a lot of fun. But I told Chris, I was like, I don't want to ruin anybody's race. I don't want to screw anything up. And he said, just come in and have fun. Who cares if you wreck the car? He said, we'll all laugh about it if we wreck. And that was kind of the mindset. I think I had six stints in the car. They were both 45 minutes each. Um, after like my last stint, I was like, I want to get back in. I want to do it again because I was having so much fun doing it. I thought it was cool because I never did that stuff. Starting my first stint was during the day. I could tell you my first like stint, and I was like, my heart was coming through my chest. I was freaking out. I remember the first couple. I remember the chicane in the back. I blew it. I got an off track, and I got through it. But then the next lap, I was like, I'm not going to do that. Well, I blew it again, and I just remember I forget who was spotting from. I think Chris, and he's like, just take it easy, man. Just go out, and he goes, do a Sunday drive. Who cares if guys are faster than you? Just go out and have fun. And I did, but after like the first 2 stints, I got comfortable, knew how the car was going to react, and a lot of I think three of my 6 stints or 4 of my 6 stints were at night, and that's when the car was really good, and I felt like I could do whatever I want with it. So I started pushing myself a little bit to get better. And I remember one stint. I remember we went from third. I think after pit stops we were pretty far back, but I made up the ground. And I think I passed for third, so I passed for position under one of my stints. I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. I'm a terrible road racer, and I passed this guy for a podium spot almost. But still, we had like 6 hours to go. But that was like a win for me.
Yeah, the that's the thing too with like when I started sim racing, the endurance races, that's when day to night transitions started. And I can't imagine what it was like when they had to race a full 24-hour race like in the day or like all in the night. But that day to night transition thing has really changed the whole dynamic of the race. So now you got, times where the car doesn't handle very good, slipping and sliding everywhere. And then at night, when Daytona's not as bad, but some tracks you have really poor visibility, but the car is the fastest. So you got to be just ripping around these tracks at night with poor visibility, with all this traffic, and it's scary as hell sometimes, but it's so fun. And I've been doing it for like a couple of years now, so I get in there and I just attack, and it's fun that with those road racing cars too. It's not like a stock car where you have to really finesse it. These cars, man, you can just be full 100% all the time, and you kind of have to be if you want to do well.
Oh yeah, you manhandle them.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I've noticed that I've learned from a friend of mine. On road racing, you don't pick up tenths in road racing; you pick up seconds. But I can say that how you start talking about poor visibility and everything. I mean, I caught first hand experience of that when I did the 12 hours of Sebring with you guys again, and I remember going into Sebring and I felt like I could run a good lap and I was consistent. I was trying to just keep Sebring's narrow, super narrow, and I just made it my goal to just stay on the goddamn track, Zane. If you stay on the track, you'll finish great. Um, I remember it was like getting towards the end of the race, and I just remember we were talking. I know me, Matt, and Chris were talking about something, and like you said, poor visibility, and I completely forgot one corner, and I luckily got on the brakes. I got on the brakes pretty late, but I got it slowed down where I didn't hit the wall. But I was like, yeah, I totally forgot about that corner, but. The Sebring was fun though. I remember. Like I said, I still remember that race. I know we started like dead last, and I think we finished top 15 because I got to finish the race out, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's like the scariest thing is where you're following it, and Sebring's pretty bad for this. You're following lines on the track, and then all of a sudden you don't know where you are. It's like the most hopeless feeling in the world.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's why I know some layouts of some tracks, but like when it comes to like Sebring Road Atlanta, I not a, I'm not 100% positive on the layouts and stuff.
Yeah, dark. Even when you are sure about the layout, the darkness just changes things
It
because
really ruins your rhythm, is what I say.
yeah, it comes
Yeah,
at
'cause
you just
you
so
look,
quick.
yeah, you look down at your relative going down the straightaway, and all of a sudden you're like, "Oh shit, did I just pass the 5 marker, or is this next one the 5 marker?" And it's like, "Oh no, that's the 3 marker. That's not good."
That was the big thing for me whenever I did the 24 hours race. That was I was nervous on where my breaking points were, and I never liked turn one. And I remember I practiced with Tim for a long time, and he said when you get into that first corner, because that first corner at Daytona is very very intimidating. It if you hit it right, you can carry a lot of speed into the corner, but if you do it wrong and you're a second late on the brakes, you're gonna lock them up and probably be in the wall. But uh, I just remember like this is where you got to brake. See this sign right here. Yeah, brake there. So every lap, I just remember looking out the side window and just see where's that, where is it, where is it. As soon as I'd see it, I'd get on the brakes.
Yeah, that's one thing that I like about road racing that's helped me is that every corner kind of has like its own formula. If you can remember that for every corner, it kind of you can just start to hit it every single time. Whereas, at least for me, oval racing is way more about feel. Like I don't really go by markers on the track and stuff in oval. I go by feel or listening to the engine of the car. Whereas road racing, I have to look for this marker, hit it, turn in at this certain point, that kind of thing. It's a lot less by feel.
I mean, some tracks will have a marker on the wall, like the bull ring, the backstretch. There's a marker there. It's where the light turns off. I know JR showed me that. And then last night, where the wall kinks back out on the front stretch, that's where you brake on the front stretch, where I did try safe tires at least. And on the backstretch, it's entirely about feeling. And it's such a different aspect compared to because you can early or late apex on a road course and it's different every time. Whereas on an oval, whatever you do at one end of the track, you're most likely going to do at the other.
Yeah, I don't even if there are markers on an oval track, I don't use them. What about you, Zane? Do you use markers on ovals at all?
Not necessarily, because one thing I've always realized about every racetrack, and especially like on here in real life, it like Motordrome and Jennerstown especially, turn one was not the same as turn three and four. Like at Jennerstown, like I said, Jennerstown, the track's awesome, but turn one is a lot wider than 3 and 4 is. And if you actually look on a like aerial view of Jennerstown, if you could find a picture, if I could find one, send you guys, you'll notice how wide turn 1 and 2 is. And I've always said to guys, if you can get through turn 1 and 2, like you can basically mat it from the center off, you'll be the best car there. 3 and 4, it's more of tight, kind of like Darlington, if you think of it in a way. Turn 3 and 4 at Darlington, just real tight and narrow, but turn one, them guys are on the throttle almost the entire time. Um, I normally go by, like engine noise, and you get into that rhythm, then it's just like it just comes natural. Like, okay, this is where it gets to, then you let off. It's more of a rhythm thing for me.
Yep, it's
Yeah, well,
kind
I
of
guess
weird. It's like an uncanny like feeling. Like you kind of can't explain it. Like it's hard to explain. Like
Yeah,
yeah,
it's really hard to explain on it.
yeah,
yeah, it's a weird feeling, and 9 times out of 10, there isn't anything on the wall for you to judge. So it's more just like the sense of speed you feel, and of course that's amplified by the car. At least to me, the car sound is like nine tenths of what I do to drive the stock cars. But then it's also, yeah, I mean, the sound and then the time you feel like you've gone from one corner to the next.
yep. I got a couple other little questions. Do you have, if you could pick any like pro or super late model race to enter in, like a real race, um, if you had to pick one, what would it be?
I mean, it's this weekend first and foremost, the Snowball Derby. I mean, it's the most prestigious race of the year. It'd be a dream to go like try that, but you're also going up against every great late model driver in the country on that race.
Yeah, it probably is the biggest one. There's a lot of big names entered this weekend, and for me at least, I love Five Flags Speedway because it seems like it's one of the fastest tracks of its size around. The sense of speed, at least for me on iRacing, is you get ripping around there in a late model.
It is pretty fun to drive on the iRacing stuff. It is. I do like driving it there, the super late model there. That's why like I would love to go do like a big race like that, but I'm very very happy that that's like Jennerstown. They put on. We have a big race of our own called the Motor Mountain Masters. It's a 150 lap. It's pro late model race, so and but still, I mean it feels like the Daytona 500 for us, and they market it so great. The first year we did it, we had 18 guys, which was pretty good for us. First year doing it, it was 6,000 to win. That's still a lot of money for a pro late model race because there's a lot of pro races out there. They're only paying 2,000, 3,000 to win. The following year, some things went right. They were going to offer the purse to be $10,000 to win, which a $10,000 to win pro late model show. That was that was one of the highest paying pro late model races in the country. Like I said, if you look at some races tracks, they're offering 5,000 to win, 4,000 to win, but 10,000 for 150 laps. That's a lot of money. But like how I've said, there was a lot of good drivers that second year. Um, there was 30, I think it was almost 40. I think it was 40 cars there that year. I remember I qualified, mid pack. I was like 19th. I think I qualified like 25th. They were taking 30 into the race. Well, I started seventh in my heat race, and they took top six. Well, I got to sixth, and I made the big race. I started in the back. I started like 20. I think I started like 22nd, 23rd, or something like that. But unfortunately, I dropped out after 15 laps. I had an electrical issue, and I ended up missing out on all that fun. But this past year, once again, I felt like we had a great car. We got up to we got to the top 10, and just restarts and things didn't go our way. We made a really bad call at lap 90, and it just kind of hurt us, and we fell back. The car, like I said, how I like to give it all she's got, but I ended up dropping out with like 10 to go because the car just got too tight. I was like, I'm in last place. There's no sense of, I'm not going to lose positions. I'm not going to gain positions with 10 to go because I was watching the field drive away from me. So I just pulled in.
Wasn't that a godsend too that you did that? because if I remember correctly, and it could be a different race, but there was a giant pileup at the end, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was. And a funny thing about that too, because there was a caution right like 2 laps after I pulled in, and I didn't know because I was like, still trying to come to senses. Like, okay, we're out. I was getting to get my shit off and getting my trying to get out of the car and stuff. Well, I got out of the car and I saw there was a caution. I'm like, well, did it happen when I came in? Because I noticed that, and then I'm like, okay, well, then the next, they got everything cleaned up, and then they got going again. There was a big like it was 5 6 cars. A couple cars got destroyed, and I started thinking I was like, I can't even be a lap down. Then if that's the case, they stopped counting laps and this and that. I'm like, they had. I'm telling you, I'm still on the lead lap. So I went up and I asked the flagman, I was like, hey, can I, since those guys wrecked out, can I crawl back in my car and go back out and, get a couple positions? Instead of finishing, I finished 19th. I figured I can go back out and finish, 12th, just make the stat sheet look a little bit better. Well, I ended up getting on Race Monitor, the app for us, and I looked and it said I was 7 laps down. But I was like, wow, it took me 7 laps to get out of a race car.
That's a short track.
Yeah, and but like I said though, I mean one of the biggest things a dream would be go race the snowball, but you also need the number one thing's a lot of money to go do it. You're going up against like look at today. Those guys are going up against Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott and Bubba Pollard, Nasty, all the short track guys, even Ty Majeski, Derek Thorne. Derek Thorne's on a. I think he's going to be. I'd like to see him win because he dominated that race last year, and unfortunately, a restart kind of screwed him, and he got spun out. But yeah, that's one of the bucket lists. If I did that, I'd probably die a happy man.
Yeah, he is on the pole today. Derek Thorne and Ty Majeski's starting P3, and Nasty's fifth. So yeah, those. I think it's gonna be one of them three guys will be the favorite.
It's going to be a good race. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah. Another one last bucket list thing. If you had to pick a different racing discipline to do in real life, and it could be anything, could be F1, could be anything. What do you think you'd pick?
I'd go to IndyCar. I would go to IndyCar in a heartbeat.
Why?
I think IndyCar is just it's one of the I think it should be the premier racing series in like just in general because there's no greater feel than seeing in my experience I went to the Indy 500 a couple times in my lifetime and seeing 33 cars go 235-mile-an-hour into turn one was probably the biggest thrill rush I've ever got.
Yeah, the atmosphere at the Indy 500. I've never been there myself, but I feel like the atmosphere is not replicated anywhere else. I think that's just the premier event in motorsports as far as the stage that is set with all the fans, how many people, and just the spectacle of it all.
Yeah, taking in the like when you go like taking in the atmosphere. The atmosphere is like it's unbelievable. I mean, when I was fortunate enough to go a couple times, like I said, they just the amount of people, like the whole neighborhood around it, like they get into it and they all love it. They know it's Indy week, and it's just there's this guy's favorite driver, this house favorite driver, but like the people around it get into it so much that if they offer their lawns as parking spots. So if you don't feel like parking in like Indianapolis's parking lot, you can go like 10 blocks up the road and park in some guy's driveway for his yard basically for $10 or $20 or so. But it was always such a cool thing to go do, and just going out there, like I said, seeing the people, like they pack 300 and some thousand people in them grandstands and in the infield, and just everything that goes on before the start of that race is just awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a bucket list event for me to go watch at some point for sure. Austin, you got any other questions?
Yeah, just why IndyCar especially? Is it the oval or just the Indy 500, or do you also really like the road racing that they do?
I do like the mixture of road racing they do. I mean, the road racing they have is, they're kind of getting. I'd like to see a little bit more ovals, kind of what it was. I wouldn't really say what it was kind of designed to do, but when they started putting in, like, they're starting to put in some street courses now. That's cool. That was like, that's bringing back the old, kind of like quote the old days, how they went to, like, they do 2 races in Detroit. I like the double day show, or like the 2 day shows and everything with the same race. That's pretty cool. I like seeing them go to Detroit, especially. Like Long Beach and St. Petersburg. Them going there. Like that's that. I like the street courses a lot about it, and the ovals. The ovals don't disappoint either.
Yeah, just the sense of speed is insane. And remember too, they're going to Nashville Street Course, brand new Nashville Street Course this in
Yeah,
2021. That'll be exciting.
that's going to be a very very exciting a race, I think, this year.
The one thing I like about IndyCar, at least from a spectator standpoint, is the parity. I always like the parity. Like, obviously, you got the Penske's and the Ganassi's that are, mostly the best, but really anyone can win on any given day. You really don't know who's going to win going into a race.
Yeah, that's what I liked about Indianapolis too. There's like, everybody has their favorites with the Penske's and the Andretti's and the Ganassis and stuff. But I got to go see Dan Weldon's last win there. In 2011, which was a very cool race because I remember it came down to fuel mileage, and J.R. Hildebrand, who was driving for Panther Racing at the time, and they were sponsored by the National Guard. I think they were sponsored by the National Guard, and he was leading, and he had a 20-second lead, and they were saying that he's going to run out of fuel. Well, they came over a guy that was sitting around us actually said they're saying on the radio he has enough fuel to make it to the end, and we're like, really? Because Dario Franchitti had to pit from the lead. I think Helio Castroneves, and at the time it was Ryan Briscoe. They were right behind him. They all pitted because they were going to run out of fuel with 10 to go. But J.R. Hildebrand stayed out, and they're saying he had another. It's like, he's going to have enough fuel. If he stays out and doesn't run out of fuel, he's going to be good. He's going to win the race. Well, I remember him coming to the white flag, and people were like, "Holy cow! It's his first Indy 500. He's going to win it. He's going to win it." Well, I remember looking at turn 4, watching him come up, and he got in the marbles, and he plowed the wall coming out of 4, and they didn't throw the caution. Well, Dan Weldon just kind of weaved his way through, past all the carnage, and Dan Weldon won the race. And that was pretty cool seeing that. We were going to see a rookie win the race, and he got in the marbles and plowed the wall.
Yeah, that was pretty nuts. I mean, I like that Dan Weldon won, but I would have liked to see J.R. Hildebrand win, just to imagine how different his career could have been if he had won that race.
And that's what I say about like IndyCar. Those guys, like, NASCAR has the Daytona 500, which is the first race of the year, and them guys prepare all winter to get the car just right, that their primary car just right to okay, we're going to go in, we're going to win with this one. Something might happen in the dual race. They got to go to a backup or fix it. Then you just feel like it's not the same. But like in Indianapolis, those guys, that's the one race I feel like they circle every year. It's like, we got to go and be good here. That's kind of how I am with my stuff. Like, the Motor Mountain Masters, I circle that race every year, and I say to my dad and my mom, I was like, I want to be good this race. I don't care about any other race right now. I want to be good this race. So, but yeah, back to the IndyCar stuff. You saying how different J.R. Hildebrand's career would have played out. I in recent years he hasn't been the best at Indianapolis. He's been mid pack, kind of towards the back kind of guy, and he's drove for some good teams too. He drove for Ed Carpenter, and Ed Carpenter's teams. His Ed Carpenter stuff is always good at Indianapolis. They're one of the ones to beat. I mean, Ed sat on the pole 3 times in 4 years, I think.
Yeah, something like that. He's been crazy fast.
And that's the thing. Like, that's a good team, and that's in my personal opinion. If that was me, I would want to be driving for him, not the Penske and the Ganassi and stuff like that. But Um, yeah, you just don't know. Like it's any race, you just don't know who's gonna win.
One of the things I really like about IndyCar too is the lack of driver aids, because for that series, the thing that's comparable to most people is you go to look at F1, and F1 has all the different, the weird engine modes and the driver aids, and you can look at those guys, and Lewis Hamilton's got like one hand on the wheel, and he's adjusting something to like change the fuel he's adding or the fuel air mixture ratio by like 10% or something. And in IndyCar, they do have some of that stuff to change the engine modes or whatever, I think, but it's definitely like there's no power steering, there's no ABS. It is the real deal.
Yeah, Formula One's good. It's a good series too, but that's another sport. Like you got to be at the top of your game. I mean, look at Mercedes. They're every year they're good because they're at the top of their game.
Yeah, the I think everybody likes F1 because it's like they're the one series that really pushes the limits of technology, probably further
Yeah,
than everybody else.
I can agree with that.
So everybody thinks, the cars are really cool and it's just like a highest end racing that there really is.
I think too it's the only series at that level, and they do elevate themselves, but they go everywhere and they race all around the world at all different times and all the different circuits around the world, and they really do that themselves.
Yeah, I can't imagine the logistics that are involved with stuff like that. Anyway, Zane, appreciate you coming on board on the podcast. Good luck to you at Jennerstown this year. Wish more success for you. I need to come over there and watch one of your races some of these sometime. And I'm sure we'll catch you later, either uh, elsewhere or on the iRacing service.
Yeah, thanks for asking me to be on today, guys. Had a lot of fun doing this, but yeah, whenever you want to come down, just let us know.
Yep, and thanks to Lacey for giving us a little bit of insider information so we could build up an interview. And yeah, we'll catch you later, Zane. You're free to go.
All
Yeah,
right, thanks,
thanks.
guys. See you guys.
See ya. So that was our guest, Zane Ferrell, first race car driver to be on the podcast. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, what a great guy. He's so much fun to be around, and he's a really funny guy in general. So that was really nice of him coming on here.
Yep. The That was one thing that I think Matt said. Like, it only takes you like 10 minutes to get to know Zane, and then you're basically like good friends with him. And he's like one of the quickest guys to become friends with.
A really cool guy. With that, I guess we'll move into video games really quick today.
Yeah, Assassin's Creed, not really much of an update for me. But my roommate Justin, I think he beat the story, so he's way ahead of me. And I haven't played like it all this week, so I have some catching up to do. But not sure when I'm gonna get to it. Just haven't really been motivated to play it. But I know you've been playing a little, some games with your friends lately.
Yeah, we've been playing more FPS and SnowRunners. We play that the four of us, and it's a lot of fun. That came out with season 2 recently, and it's added some more cool vehicles. That should be even more fun.
Yeah, I haven't played that in a while actually. You and I need to probably play that sometime. But Cyberpunk 2077 is supposed to come out this week. It's been delayed and delayed and delayed. Um, but it's supposed to come out the 10th, I think. So hopefully I'll have something to mention about that in the next podcast next week.
Allegedly, yes.
Yeah, allegedly. Um, any bring us this to the rants and reviews. Um, you think we can touch on this? The iRacing Pro Series. They went to Auto Club Speedway. Not this past week, but the week before, I believe. Was that correct?
Yeah, what?
I think they were at a different place this week.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Um,
But I know it was the last one we watched.
yeah. So there was hardly any passing, and I think it's just. I guess it's an accurate simulation then. iRacing with the Auto Club Speedway because there's no passing.
Yeah,
I
there's
think
no passing. It was a fuel mileage race too.
yeah, there's just one on strategy, which I like fuel mileage races, but if that's the only way that we're gonna get any passes, I kind of lose my interest.
No, personally, I agree. The fuel mileage races are always a lot of fun to me, and I don't know if it's because the calculations are like, oh, you don't know if you can make it, and the fact that like a smarter strategy can beat like the fastest or most talented guy. But I just Auto Club Speedway isn't the best.
No, I used to like it. I used to like how wide the track was, like for NASCAR and stuff, and I don't know, just kind of lost its luster. Just
If you get a good package, it could be fun. Like we've seen a lot of good races there, but it really depends on the package. I think you need a lot of drag and a lot of horsepower, and not more so of one or the other. It's got to be a lot of both because they had great races there in 2013 and then in 2014, but recently, I mean, low drag, high horsepower, okay, high drag, low horsepower, trash.
yeah, the style where the cars are stuck to the track, it just doesn't provide good racing. You need to be able to like rim ride the track and run different lines, kind of run it like a dirt track, almost.
Yeah, I mean it's wide enough, and sometimes you need to do that if the car gets loose enough, but the packages I have now there aren't the greatest.
Then a quick rant. I'm not gonna get into it too much, but the Snowflake 100 finish last night. Um, yeah, the Stephen Nasse won, but coming into turn 3 and 4 on the final lap, he got into the back of Bubba Pollard, and he kind of got him loose, and then he spun, and he came and won the race, and they disqualified him um, for causing that wreck. But they didn't give the win to Bubba Pollard because he didn't actually cross the line next. They actually gave it to the third place driver. Um, and I would have ranted on about this a little more, but they do have a rule that's if you cause an accident like a caution, you get put to the end of the line. And this would have warranted a caution, which I agree with. It was a big enough spin. So they just treat it like any other caution would have been, even though it was the last lap. They treat it as you're going to go to the end of the longest line, which I don't like it. Um, but now that I know that rule exists, I think I can see where they're going. The fact that they took like 2 hours to figure out who actually won the race, and the fact that they let Johanna Long back in like 2010, I think it was, absolutely dump Landon Castle on the backstretch, and they didn't penalize her. I think the lack of consistency is kind of where my rant comes from. And that's kind of a struggle we have in racing sometimes. Just officials seem to not remember what they called, years ago, and then they change it.
Yeah, it's weird. I'm okay with this one more so than the Johanna Long one, just because if there were a caution, Bubba Pollard would have lost his spot. So it would have been, the guy in third place would have been leading, and then Stephen Nasse would have been EOL'd. So from that standpoint, I can agree with it. But again, it's the rant comes in at the inconsistency and frankly the BS of it. But
Yeah,
what are you
and
gonna
he won the he won the Snowball Derby last year too, Nasse, and then he got DQ'd because his brakes had titanium in them. So like that guy can't seem to catch a break. Uh, no pun intended on that one, but and he starts fifth today in the Snowball Derby, so we'll see what he can do. Um, going to be probably harder competition than what he had last year, but he's been fast. He's proven he can at least cross the finish line first. He just needs to do it fairly, I guess.
Yep, you could probably expect a rant and review about BRL yesterday, but we're just gonna leave it to the real stuff for rants and reviews to get us heated up.
Oh yeah,
And next up will be getting around to it. Modeling. I finished my Tony Stewart rookie car. It's all done. Looks nice. I started the Corvette C7R kit by Revell, going pretty nicely. I just gotta paint it two-tone. Never done one of those before, other than just like the orange and white. But the white was the plastic of the car for Tony Stewart's car. So see how it goes. But two JR Salvino's cars.
Yeah, you and Brian have actually been making some decent progress on that, the modeling stuff lately. It's been interesting to watch. Um, I did. I think I only did like one official races over the last one or two over the last couple weeks. But I went and did some digging into my stats and found that I've lost iRating in my last 6 oval starts on in officials. So it hasn't been too great for me when I have decided to run some races. So I don't know. I need to pick it up at some point.
But I think that will do it for us today, Kenny. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think I'll just mention real quick tonight at I think it's like 6 or 7 p.m. Eastern. Brian Dean, good friend of us, he's the other modeling guy. He will be running an iRacing full-length snowball derby. I think it's full-length anyways, with the Flying Aces and fixed setup. And I'll be crew chiefing, maybe doing a little bit of spotting for him. And I think I'll throw up a live stream for that if Brian's okay with that. So that's something we'll be doing. But yeah, we gotta go so we can watch the F1 race and then the snowball derby and then the virtual snowball derby. So it's been a great weekend. Thanks again to Zane for coming on board and for Lacey for helping us out with that. Thanks again to Austin, my co-host. Um, any last words for you, Austin?
Yeah, just put that out there. Brian's stream is Rusty Buttons on Twitch. He's the one that Kenny will be crew chiefing and spotting for. And if Kenny doesn't stream it, Brian's will be the only place you could watch it.
Yep, he will definitely be live as my
Great
guest.
streamer, great streamer.
Yes, he is. We got to get him on here sometime. Brian's he's a cool guy. Anyways, guys, thanks everybody for tuning in. I'll upload this to YouTube in the coming days. In case you missed anything, you can watch the whole entire podcast back on my YouTube channel. That's Kibbs, Kibbs. You can, if you follow my Twitter, ngkibbs, you can check out my link to my YouTube. But anyways, guys, thanks everybody for watching, and we'll talk to you all later. Peace out.
Good luck, Godspeed.
Yep, good luck and Godspeed.